All right, the final round of Swiss. We've got one familiar face here on the left-hand side. We've got Orlando on the Temur Dynavolt Tower deck. Yeah, Temur Tower. And on the right, we've got actually a pretty spicy deck today. We've got the what's the name of the card?
Perspectives?
Yes, the New Perspectives combo deck. Ammi's just going to be cycling a bunch of stuff and doing a bunch of stuff that has to deal with cycling, and then eventually just play a bunch of cycling cards and then cast Approach of the Second Sun.
The idea is that you get to turn 6 or even turn 5 sometimes, cast your New Perspectives, cycle a bunch of things for free, eventually find your Approach of the Second Sun, cast it, and then through the use of Vizier of Tumbling Sands that untaps your land, eventually just like cycle enough things, go through, find it again, and cast it.
Yep. Yeah, you just end up netting, you play a Weirding Wood onto a land, and then when you untap that land, it generates 2 mana, and if you're able to do that a bunch of times, you also play Shallow Graves to get back all the stuff you cycled this turn, and then you're able to, you know, use the Vizier a bunch of times, you generate a bunch of mana, and then approach the Second Sun, and then you still have a bunch more cyclers, and you draw through your deck and approach again.
Yeah. So while these two control decks are kind of just saying land go, what are their records at this point, do you know?
These were, at this point in the tournament, we had a couple draws into the top 8. So these are the win and ins. So if Orlando wins, he's locked himself a spot in the top 8, and if Ammi wins, he's also locked himself a spot in the top 8. They're both X and 1 at this point. Trying to get the game going quickly. Ammi tries to play a Weirding Wood on one of his lands to be able to generate more mana. It's followed up with a Censor.
I think that's a smart play. That's one of the ways that deck goes off faster, easier, is through Weirding Wood, so I definitely like the call on censoring that.
Yes, I also feel like the versatility of Censor kind of runs out pretty quickly, so if you can get anything with it, with its main Force Spike mode, then you're likely to do it and not feel too bad.
Exactly.
Of course, we all love cycling, and being able to cycle for 1 mana is pretty great, but
it looks like Ammi's gonna cycle a couple of things and hopefully play a land here. And I thought I saw some tap lands in his hand, and I imagine he would play one to not miss a land drop.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, not even a tap land. It's what are the show lands or whatever the
Fortified Village.
Yes, they ended up being called.
Were they called show lands?
People come up with weird names for these things. They're the ones from the not Battle for.
They're from.
Oh my gosh!
Shadows over Innistrad.
Shadows over Innistrad. Jeez.
The battle lands are the you must have 2 basics.
Exactly. There we go. So, relatively exciting gameplay going on right now. We're just each of the decks are trying to get to a bunch of lands and then start doing something.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
If you're the New Perspective decks, you're trying to get to 6 mana to cast your New Perspectives.
And if you're Temur Dynavolt, you cast a Dynavolt and then cast spells.
And then cast instants and sorceries, rack up a ton of energy, and shoot some face.
Yes. It's gonna take a little bit longer, I guess, against Ammi's deck, considering he's got a couple of, like, renewed faiths. He's gained a couple points here and there. So right now, how many 7? It's 8 activations from Dynavolt Tower. It's a lot of energy. That's 40 energy.
That's gonna take you a while, but at least the Temur Tower deck does play a Torrential Gearhulk, so hopefully you'll hit something like that. Maybe speed it up if you're Orlando and you're trying to take this. Is that a Disallow? I don't think I saw that right. But there's the new perspectives on turn 6.
Here we go.
Void Shattered.
Void Shattered.
Yep.
All right. Oh well.
Oh, shatter your new perspectives. Stay with your old perspectives.
I think I do like Void Shatters in a lot of decks. There's oftentimes we'll see that the exile is and can be pretty relevant. In this instance, the exiling the new perspectives isn't like it's kind of indifferent because there's no way to get the new perspectives back in any way. Maybe some of the cycling cards I could see exiling when if you were to cast them, because there's ways to get them back, or maybe I guess technically exiling the Void Shatter prevents Delirium.
That's true.
Which a lot of these new perspectives decks they do. They play Traverse the Ulvenwald because sometimes you don't want to have to do this, but sometimes you just cast Shefet Monitor as an attack.
Yep.
Or sometimes you need to traverse for a Shefet Monitor or traverse for a Vizier to kind of to enable the combo to go off.
I've seen many more people traverse for Vizier. I feel like he's, especially when you start to begin to cycle, that's the card that you need to see to cycle him, untap your Weirded Wood land, and go from there. And it looks like he's going 2 with 3 forests.
Yep,
Weirding Wood.
Yes. Weirding Wood's a fun one, the draft chaff, if you will, that kind of these weird combo decks often employ. There's always a weird card here that's just like, wait, that was actually printed? What? That seems really bad.
You're like, oh, I maybe drafted that card once.
Yeah. In fact, I probably picked the basic land over it a couple times.
I think I played a Weirding Wood once or twice. Like, worst case scenario, it made me a clue. Like,
and it kind of ramped me, I guess. Yeah, 3 mana enchantment, you put it on a land, and then when you tap that land, it adds 2 colors. Or adds 2 mana, rather.
I think it's arguably better than there's a new one in Amonkhet that's... it makes you 2 mana of any color, and you gain 3 life when it enters the battlefield.
Gift of Paradise or something like that. Yeah, I think the clue, being able to draw the card, is certainly better than the 3 life. It's often less relevant. I don't know. Maybe if we're facing a more aggressive metagame, then we can see these Weirding Woods transition into the Gifts of Paradise. Just maybe that 3 life is going to be relevant more if this deck kind of continues to gain some of its popularity.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, here we go. Starting the cycle train, and okay. No. Well, that was not long for this world. Yeah, one of the things you'll probably notice is Ammi starts cycling things. He doesn't put them directly into his graveyard. He leaves a little pile off to the side. That's pretty important because Shallow Graves...
Shadow of the Grave.
Shadow of the Grave, pardon me. Shallow Grave was like another card from way back when. Shadow of the Grave allows you to get back all the cards you cycled this turn, though, not just all of your cycling cards. And just keeping them off to the side is the essential way to be able to differentiate them.
Another Attune with Aether coming down for Orlando.
Yeah, right now Orlando's just land, go. Okay, occasionally I'll cast Attune with Aether. I've got my win condition, if you will. Ooh. Interesting play here. I guess it looks like
I'd imagine he's going for the tower.
Yes, tower. Maybe with the energy trigger on the stack from the Dynavolt Tower.
Is this what you were talking about a minute ago?
Yes. Okay. Here we go. So we've got a little bit of a possible breakdown in communication / maybe a slight unfamiliarity with the how exactly the wording of spells work. From what I gathered in speaking with Orlando, this was actually his first PPTQ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so and he's doing pretty well. So he's new to the competitive REL wording scene. And when Ammi cast this cast out, Orlando said, "Oh, I'm guessing you're targeting the Dynavolt Tower," and Ammi said, "Yeah, sure." To which the response from Orlando was, okay, well, I'm going to cast Torrential Gearhulk, and I'm going to try and counter your cast out. But some of you probably know where I'm going with this, because Orlando said, okay, he accepted that he was targeting the Dynavolt Tower. That means that the cast out had already resolved, and, well, Orlando's left with a Torrential Gearhulk that targeted a Void Shatter, and he can't counter the cast out because it already resolved. A little bit of an unfortunate misstep, but let's see what it does actually to impact the end of the game. Because that said, Ammi's just kind of spinning his wheels and cycling things and doing silly things.
He does not have a new perspectives on the field.
He does exactly.
All right.
And look, he cast a Shefet Monitor, and Orlando has his 5/6. Sure, the Shefet Monitor blocks, but I'm gonna guess that the Temur Tower deck has ways to answer that Shefet Monitor that don't involve the Torrential Gearhulk trading with it.
I would imagine so. How big is Shefet Monitor on its own? Is it a 4/4 or 5/5?
I think it's a 6/5, actually. Yes. We can get confirmation. It's so weird because you don't even often...
Nobody casts it.
Yeah,
they
you
just
never just
cycle
cast it. Yeah, it is indeed a 6/5.
Okay, so it does block.
It
does block that Torrential Gearhulk, but I imagine a Harness Lightning coming down will do something more what Orlando would like to do.
Yeah, Orlando had already cast... He cast a couple of Attune with Aethers prior to the Dynavolt Tower, and then even Attune with Aethers while the Dynavolt Tower was out, so he's got more than enough energy to be able to deal with the Shefet Monitor, and he gets to attack for 5 a turn here. Granted, Ammi was a little bit above 20, so...
Not quite a 4-turn clock.
Yeah, but I guess just having a 5/6 is pretty good against a deck that all it wants to do is spin its wheels. There aren't really many removal spells. We're seeing a couple of cast outs, but even then there's only so many that the deck is going to be able to play, and it can't afford to really play much interaction otherwise. Just because
if it plays interaction, it's not playing things that cycle.
Exactly. It needs it needs to hit a certain threshold of cycling cards to be able to have the game plan go off in the way that it wants it to.
I mean, we saw this deck played a little bit on the Pro Tour too, and there was a game plan where they'd cited in Fumigates into the New Perspectives deck, and they were talking about how if that was like a good or bad call, because what if you run into these Fumigates and they're going to help you clear out some creatures, but what if it causes your New Perspectives Approach of the Second Sun combo to fizzle? Yeah,
because it's the kind of risk reward you take when you play a very, very linear and focused combo deck, or I guess any deck that's super linear and hyper focused on one particular thing. You can sideboard in other disruptive elements for your opponent's decks or something else, but it kind of, the more you do that, the less linear you become.
So
all right.
So here we have a hardcast Approach of the Second Sun, which, I mean, if you don't have New Perspectives to get there, you might as well try and jam, I guess.
Yeah, well, it buys him 2 turns versus the Torrential Gearhulk, and maybe getting to a couple of cyclers to be able to get there.
How do you just hope that your opponent that's playing blue doesn't have a counterspell for it, and for it to go to your graveyard as opposed to 3 down, or does it go 3 down or 7 down anyway?
It's the 7th card down.
Yeah.
If it were to resolve. You hope for that when you don't have much else going on in your hand, and your opponent just countered multiple of your New Perspectives and killed your Shefet Monitor.
And I mean, it did work. It did go 7 down, so now you just gotta hope to cycle a bunch of other things.
There you go. That's 1 card. That's
2.
Another card. That's 2. All right, so
go 5
that's
more?
3. 4 more.
It's got 3 Shadow of the Graves.
And it looks like there was a New Perspectives as well.
Oh.
Granted, it's. I mean, you're gonna draw 3, so. So we got 4 more to go. New Perspectives. Let's
Give
see.
it a shot.
I'm anticipating. Oh, counterspell. Interesting. Interesting. Orlando had to have just drawn that, because I can't see him not countering.
Void shattering an
approach. Exactly. Not void shattering the approach, because it looks like in the main.
That's the only win card.
Exactly. Ammi's only playing 1, and you're certainly not winning through. Not winning with a bunch of Shefet Monitors or Vizier of the Tumbling Sands attacking.
Definitely not. So yeah, he must have just drawn it. I would agree. Now he's just got to wait and cycle a bunch of other things and hope to cast it again. The second time, though, it is a cast trigger. It is not. It does not have to resolve, I don't think.
Yes, it is if you cast. If you cast it from your hand.
Yes. They had to word it that way so that you could Aetherworks Marvel with it.
God,
I guess for the first time you could still Aetherworks Marvel it, but the second time you have to cast it from your
Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand, and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. So you have to cast it from your hand the second time.
Yes.
If it was cast from Aetherworks Marvel the first time, it's A-okay.
Yep.
Yep.
I remember some people talking about trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Clearly it must not have worked. Nobody at the Pro Tour even touched that sort of...
Why are cards so weird?
I don't know.
Sometimes some of the wording is just so weird and unintuitive.
Approach especially.
Yeah, it's just... This is super interesting, just total side note. It seems like in Amonkhet there's a lot more of put it into your library. It's like their R&D is exploring new design space. Put it into your library a certain number in a certain spot. And approaches, well, let's see if there's any other type of not mechanic necessarily, but any other support for like this type of thing in the next one. Yeah, I think we're 1 or 2 cards away.
Yep. And he did cast out to save his life total from the Gearhulk.
Exactly right there. The only problem is he only has 6 mana.
Oh, Shadow of the Grave. Oh,
get back the cyclers. Yep. But he's kind of just spinning his
wheels.
wheels.
Live one turn. How much energy does he have?
He's got enough energy to be able to double activate.
So he could just kill him this turn.
Mm-hmm. Or even if he doesn't, he can just get through and attack with. Oh no, there isn't. I thought I saw the Lumbering Falls at first.
Nope, doesn't look like it.
Glimmer gets him enough energy. He just needed. He was at the point where he needed any spell. It looks like unfortunately the energy count is just a little bit off.
Hoping to draw maybe a Renewed Faith or a.
Yeah, being able to cycle a Renewed Faith would have been very clutch there. But it looks like we've got just one more Dynavolt Tower, and then.
He might be dead, unless he did find a Renewed Faith and is bluffing.
Nope.
Into it, maybe. Nope.
No, certainly not. I know. I've played with and against and watched Ammi play a bunch of time. He's definitely the kind of player who's gonna make you go through the motions and make you kill him. He's not just going to.
Most of the new perspective players are kind of like that, I feel.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to go through it. So this is certainly an interesting matchup. How do you sideboard? I mean, I think from the tower deck, I think just bringing in more creatures and trying to get your opponent dead is where you want to be.
Exactly. I think the Bristling Hydra is definitely going to come in from the Temur deck.
Mm-hmm.
I actually haven't seen a sideboard for the new Perspectives deck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure like it's out now for like the Pro Tour, but at the time that I was like looking at this deck, I hadn't seen a ton of like plans. But I love that they're running the Angel package in the sideboard.
Yeah, this one's pretty cool.
It's kind of spicy.
Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna see it. Like he's certainly if you think that you might not be able to get there with approach, or if you're not gonna be able to go the full combo route and just go boom 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 with a new perspective, cycle, and then cast the approach multiple times. You know, similarly to what Orlando's probably gonna be doing and bringing in creatures, Ammi's probably gonna be doing the same.
Yeah.
Maybe Gisela. The fact that she's a 4-power first striker with lifelink is going to be able to get there. I'm also excited to see if we see the Drake Haven. I feel for the exact same reasons, even though Drake Haven itself is not a creature, like being able to poop out like 3 or 4 drakes is just going to be value in and of itself. So despite our first game kind of being a little weird and draw go at times, I think
Game 2
might be pretty exciting. Yeah. All right, well, so we'll see what happens. We'll see you in game 2.